Hey, Joe Zarzaur here for another installment of Zarzaur Law TV. Today we're talking about this concept of qualified immunity. As everybody knows, if you've been watching or halfway watching any of the news these days, there's a lot of discussions on police and excessive force. We at the firm believe, like most Americans believe, that 99.9% of the police are doing the right thing and trying to do the best thing for us. But there are certainly a fair amount of, in every profession, that needs to be trained better, perhaps doesn't need to be doing that profession, whether it's lawyers, doctors, or police officers. And in the case of police officers, they are entitled, unlike lawyers and doctors, they are entitled to an extra layer of protection. And this protection is called qualified immunity. And I wanted to explain it a little bit because it's really important to understand how protective it is. And in large respect, maybe it's right. But what qualified immunity is a legal concept, and it's applied on a case-by-case basis. And what it does for police officers in particular is it shields them for legal responsibility, them and the agencies they work for, from legal responsibility for cases of excessive force. And the way it works is this: unless there has already been a case that is exactly the same as the situation that the officer is accused of violating somebody's rights in, and that case has already decided that it would be a violation of somebody's rights to use that amount of force in that exact situation, then the officer is immune from being sued for that. So in other words, to say it another way, there has to be an exact similar situation where a court has said that's too much force for the officer to not have the ability to say they're immune from suit under qualified immunity. Here's how particular it has to be. The facts have to be exactly the same. For instance, let's say you have case A where somebody claims that the police used excessive force on them, and they were shot for getting pulled over after a DUI, and the person was reaching for something out of the glove box. And the police officer had a reason to believe that it was a gun. So a gun was used, or a taser was used to subdue the suspect, right? And the suspect sued for excessive force. And let's say the court found that that was excessive force. Well, if you take the same exact situation and instead of reaching for the glove box, they're reaching for the center console. I know that doesn't sound like a huge difference, but it is. And the courts interpret it as a huge difference. So the fact that one court can decide that reaching for the glove box may or may not be enough to grant qualified immunity says nothing about the person reaching for the center console. It may be instructive, but there's a whole host of other arguments you can make about the center console that you can't make about the glove box and vice versa. Because of that, it has inserted a lot of uncertainty into the mix. And generally, when it comes to uncertainty, the courts tend to side with granting qualified immunity. So it has become a shield for officers because its application is not really clear-cut. A lot of the stuff that's being talked about at the federal congressional level is how to make this concept work better, more predictable for both officers and citizens. And we support, and I think you should read up on, making this more workable for everybody involved. Right now, it's one-sided. It's basically a shield for officers that cannot be pierced unless you exactly mimic the situation that's already been decided. And folks, it's really hard to do that because you can find a difference in every situation, whether it be the weight of the person, the height of the person, the temperature, the conditions, whether it's stormy when the police confront somebody, which makes visibility worse. There are so many different things that can be raised in a situation to make it different from a prior case, which then shields the officer from being called into question. And at the end of the day, this is what we're talking about. We're talking about when is it appropriate to shield an entire profession from being questioned about their behavior. Lawyers can't do that. Doctors can't do that in large part. And you've got to ask yourself the question, why should officers be allowed that level of protection? Or should they? Now, the counter argument is that, look, officers are out there risking their lives, which they are. They're out there doing a hard job for not a lot of money, and they should at least have the ability to do it without worrying about getting sued, right? Well, those are all valid arguments. However, what's equally valid is what was told to me in law school. There was a constitutional law professor that said on one of the first days of law school, raise your hand if you know who the most powerful person is in our legal system. And everybody around the table or the classroom was raising their hand. Supreme Court Justice, State Supreme Court Justice, U.S. Supreme Court Chief Justice, Attorney General for the state, Attorney General for the country. And everybody was wrong with those guesses. I was wrong. I can't remember. I said one of those things. And the answer was the patrol officer is the most powerful person in our justice system. And why is that? Well, that person is the only person that can turn you into from a regular citizen walking the streets to a suspect in a crime. That person has the ability to change your status from being one of a free citizen to not free anymore. That's a humongous responsibility, okay? When you add to that they also have the ability for deadly force, to utilize deadly force with qualified immunity, you are then talking about the most powerful person in our justice system, in our legal system, the patrol officer, the street officer, the street cop. That's why we should, number one, respect them. Number two, also they should be saddled with a huge amount of accountability and responsibility when it comes to their behavior. So, as many of you may or may not know, we actually represent victims of, in some cases, we pass on 99% of them because in 99% of the cases, we feel like the officers are doing the right thing. But there are some cases that we do involve ourselves in at the firm where we think the police officer has overstepped their boundaries. If you have a case of police misconduct that you feel like you want us to evaluate, we're happy to do that. You can find us on the web at zarzaurlaw.com. You can always call us at 855-HIRE-JOE. Thank you.